This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Spore Sailing Pirates? This is Steven, your host with Untitled Podcast, along with my lifelong friend Ben, and we are talking about Tress of the Emerald Sea, aka Secret Project #1 from Brandon Sanderson's famous Kickstarter. It came out to Kickstarter backers on January 1st of this year, so we're about a month after release now, but it doesn't come out to non-Kickstarter backers until April. So we're going to do a few minutes of non-spoiler stuff, what the book is, because I think there's probably plenty of people that are Sanderson fans that didn't back the Kickstarter. And then once we get into that, then we will talk full spoilers about our opinions for the book. So, Ben, what is this book? How would you describe it to someone who did not back the Kickstarter and hasn't read it yet?
Yeah. Okay. So I would describe it the same way that Sanderson probably would describe it, which is the Princess Bride, like an homage to the Princess Bride, where maybe the damsel in distress actually decides to do something about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like one line elevator pitch. And in terms of like everything surrounding it, I like in terms of it being the first part of the Kickstarter and whatnot, this like surpassed a lot of my expectations for what I thought the Kickstarter books would be. So I was very pleasantly surprised about that. And even like down to how they delivered, they gave us like a Spotify code, and they also gave us like the raw MP3 files, and they gave us like just so many things that kind of went above and beyond what I expected, and made the process, if not as easy as downloading it from Audible, like still remarkably like anybody should be able to find a solution. So I wanted to kind of cover that because I was really impressed by it.
Yeah, it is a little bit disappointing that they had some shipping delays on the actual physical copies of the book. So I'm still waiting for mine, although they are sending them out now. But, at some point, those things are outside of your control a little bit. And there are delays at every printer that you can possibly think of right now. So that's not really Dragonstone's fault at all. It is a little disappointing, but on the flip side, they really did make it so easy a caveman can do it to figure out how to get the digital files into a format that you can read or listen, or however you want to do it.
Right. And you're right with the delays. The important part for me when stuff like that happens is that they're being open about it, right? They're making logical decisions as they go. So for example, they are ensuring that all of the Kickstarter patrons are receiving the books first before like Kickstarter. So like, to me, that matters more than like, it's unfortunate that there's delays, but the way that they're handling it is almost.
Yeah, I think that was a huge plus on their foresight there, because if there were delays, but then the traditional publishers were releasing the books and Kickstarter backers hadn't got it yet, that's definitely.
It's funny that we have to give them credit for this, because obviously that's what should happen, but sometimes what's obvious doesn't always, happen. So
yeah, so they're doing a great job at Dragonstone with this so far as we can tell. But yeah, like you say, it's just important to be honest about what's going on and let people know when you have delays, and I think people are pretty understanding. So other authors, if you're listening, Rathus, that would be something you could do. Anyway, let's talk about Tress. So like you said, it's very similar to Princess Bride. I would say it's a YA book. It's not the same level of epic fantasy that you've seen with like the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, for example, but it's still like heavily fantasy. It's got the Brandon Sanderson world building. It's got some plot twists. It's got some fun characters. So kind of all the typical elements of a Sanderson story are there, but it is in more of this like whimsical setting.
Yeah. So if I was to place it, like kind of categorize it along with some of Sanderson's other works, like not in terms of quality per se, but just in terms of like what you should expect, it would be somewhere between Emperor's Soul and Warbreaker. So like it's longer than Emperor's Soul, but it still has like the linear narrative, and it has a similar like feel to Warbreaker in terms of like the snarkiness of some of the characters and whatnot, and just kind of like almost the attitude that some of the characters take during the book. So
Mhm.
if you've like read all of Sanderson's works and you haven't read this one yet, then that's kind of what, and maybe like with some elements of Era 2 of Mistborn kind of sprinkled in. That's kind of what I would say you should expect.
See, I would say it's more along the lines of like Skyward, because you have the female, the younger teenage female protagonist who is somewhat snarky, like you say, the whole time.
Yeah, I guess I was
and it's
keeping it to Storm or to
yeah, to
Cosmere,
Cosmere. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But yeah, it is important to mention that this is a Cosmere book. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most and was surprised the most by was the level of Cosmere connection. I thought this was going to be like a few nods to the Cosmere, like, oh, yes, here we are. But no, it's very much Cosmere. There are mentions
Cosmere,
everywhere. Yeah, there are characters everywhere. So if you love the Cosmere, which most Sanderson fans do, I think you'll really appreciate that aspect of this.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, even down to like who the narrator of the book is. Like it's just like it's very entwined with the Cosmere.
Right.
So so what would you say about the fact that this might be somebody's first introduction to Sanderson in terms of like the Kickstarter made some splashes, made like a big splash, like just in the wider world of non-fantasy people. So like say somebody was like found out about this and they wanted to like have this be the introduction. Like, first of all, I don't know. There might be like 2 people in the world that that's the case for. But like assuming that is the case for them, like how do you think that this book would have worked?
I think if you're a younger audience, then it would work. Okay. I think if you're an adult reader, you'd be like, okay, this guy's maybe not for me, because it is written for a younger audience. Not to say that adults aren't going to like it, but if I were to pick up this book and read it, I would, I liked it. Okay. But I would not say, okay, Brandon Sanderson is, in my top 5 authors of all time. Right. I'd say like, okay, this guy wrote a book.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. I get that. For me, it like is a little bit better because the book is doing what it wants to do very, very well. And so if I was like, oh, what else has he written? And I see that it's like epic fantasy, I'm like, oh, well, then that probably does what it's trying to do very, very well as well. You know what I mean? So I think I could agree with you in terms of like, maybe if you don't think too much past.
So you're saying if you haven't read any Sanderson before, you read this, you see the potential of this guy. Right. You're like, oh, he's written all these other epic fantasy books. Let's try these ones.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to think of another good analogy, but like,
no, I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, like I said before, the Sanderson elements are there. The world building is really fun. It's a nautical expedition for most of the book, and instead of regular water that they're sailing on, it's a sea of spores that you can sail through because of this fluidization process that happens. And there's a really cool video where Sanderson and Mark Rober actually show you how this works with real science. And honestly, I wish I had seen that video before reading the book.
Oh, you hadn't seen it?
Me. No, I read the book first and then the video that had come out later. It would have helped me visualize it a little bit more. But it's really cool that it's like actual science and it could work. Yeah,
see, I had seen Mark Rober's original video, like, I don't know if it was when it came out, but it was years ago at this point.
Yeah. I'm not as YouTube savvy as you are, so I had never seen that one.
Yeah, see, that was something I've been, like I've known about for a long time. So I don't want to give away, like, because we've been able to read the premise of some of the later projects or secret projects that have come out already. And there's a premise to one of them. I don't want to spoil it because people are very sensitive, but like there's videos of people doing this thing on the internet that you also haven't seen. So I want to.
Which project are you referring to? Number 4, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it was number 4.
Okay.
No, well, I don't know. We'll talk about it offline, but I'm just saying that like there are these like magic system that are based on things that happen in our world, that it really does help if you've seen
Okay.
it done before.
All right, hop on Phantology Discord and Ben will tell you the secret to
Yeah,
the
again,
real science magic.
I'm being sensitive to that because like I know that Dragonsteel is being sensitive to it in terms of like not
Yeah.
wanting to like reveal titles or whatever. So
Yeah.
and maybe I'll
Nice.
come back to that in the spoiler section. I don't know, but okay. So
Yeah.
that was a great video. It was cool to see that crossover between Sanderson and Mark Rober. If you were like fans of both for whatever reason, that was really fun.
So I'm guessing if you're listening, listeners right now, you're probably wondering why I'm like hedging between how much I liked it, because I'm talking about the positive things, but at the same time, I'm like, he wrote a book. So my deal with this book was I liked a lot of it. I liked the world building. I liked the plot for the most part, but the tone and the humor just didn't work for me so many times throughout, where I was just kind of rolling my eyes and like, okay, this is not a very funny joke. It's just dad joke after dad joke for me. And, for some people, I think that really does land. And I don't want to offend you and tell you your sense of humor sucks or anything, but it just wasn't really my sense of humor. I like more of the low-key British, sarcastic, almost biting humor a lot more. I think that stuff is funnier. Sanderson doesn't really lean into that as much. And with this YA tone, there was just so much of this, on the nose kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. And that's why I said it kind of reminded me of Mistborn era too. And that was also like something that you struggled with during that, is that
right? It's a
like,
lot of Wayne humor.
Yeah.
The Wayne style.
Yeah, which I totally get. For me, I don't know if I like it more than you, but it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I could see how
it's totally fair. And I feel like a lot of readers are going to really enjoy it. A lot of people won't even bother at all, but it was a little grating for me there. And I feel like just so many of the jokes just kind of went on too long, and I had already decided they weren't that funny.
See, that's interesting because I feel like that happened more in era 2 than it did in this book. I feel like most of these were kind of one-off. I don't know. We can maybe talk about during spoilers, but what do you think about the fact that like originally he wrote this like as a present for his wife, and so maybe he was just trying to make her giggle,
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, obviously he did not take himself very seriously in writing this book, which is fine.
Yeah. But in terms of, that's where, in terms of decreasing my overall enjoyment, it just didn't, you know what I mean? Like so I don't want to tell you you're wrong. I just like, that's
no, you can tell me,
me
I'm wrong. I think a lot of people have read the book and enjoyed the book and will tell me I'm wrong, because there are a lot of really good reviews out there, but it did decrease my enjoyment. I'm going to be honest with my review. I would probably overall give it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay, that's fair. And would you say like when you watch like for example The Princess Bride, I feel like Princess Bride has similar types of humor to that, where it's just like some of the gags might run on like a little bit too long, like the whole poison scene, or like like, but if I did this and you did that and you thought that, and you know what I mean? Like to me it's striking a very similar tone to that. Or like where they both switch to the left hand, but like for some reason, like when they're sword fight, or sorry, they're both sword fighting with their left hand and they switch to the right. Like these things, they might just, do they just work better on screen for you?
Maybe there's probably also the nostalgia of like I watched Princess Bride when I was a kid, and so I've.
But adults were like, everybody loves Princess Bride though. Like it's like universally loved.
Sure. I think part of that is it's a cult classic and people watched it when they were younger. And I mean, do teenagers now watch it for the first time and love it still? Is that a thing?
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, sure. Maybe you're right. But like for me, that might be why like I kind of accepted it a little bit more than I did in era 2, because I feel like in era 2 it kind of bothered me in a similar way as it bothered you. But in this one, it was just like, oh, this is the tone that it should be going for, because it is like more of a fairy tale, more of like an homage to Princess Bride, like, so that tone fits a lot better.
Yeah, by way of tone, the fairy tale whimsical tone was what he was going for. So that's fine. I think I don't know, there's probably some listeners who are probably tired of me complaining about Sanderson's humor. I like literally everything else about Sanderson's books except the humor is just the one thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess I have to complain about something.
If you could like import like Abercrombie's humor into Sanderson's books, you'd be like,
Yeah, but it just wouldn't work because Abercrombie's humor relies on his
on like
really
the contrast
dark,
of the
tone, and Sanderson doesn't have that. So
yeah.
I don't.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Okay, so any other like kind of high level non-spoilery things that we should talk about here?
I think that's good. I think if you haven't
Yeah.
read yet, you have at least a little bit of an idea. What would you give it out of 10 for your rating?
Oh, I don't see how I like have defended it and said you should raise it higher, but I would also say maybe like for what I was going for like an 8, but overall like just enjoying it, maybe like a 7, But that's good.
Sounds like
because
we have different scales. Maybe
yeah,
I need to lower mine to a 6.
yeah. Because for me, I was worried that the secret projects were going to be, we've talked about this analogy before, but like that they were going to be like the Disney Plus Marvel TV shows where they're just like filler content in the overall universe. And I was very pleasantly surprised that this was not, I didn't feel like this was that.
Right. I mean, obviously he's not spent as much time on the secret projects as he has on his other books. He's releasing 4 of them. He wrote them all fairly quickly. I mean, yes, he's an accomplished published author. He's done several drafts through them and everything, but they don't have the same.
Right. He's not like beta test reading them for.
Yeah, he hasn't planned these out for years. They just kind of came. So I think it's fair to expect more of like a Disney Plus level here. And yeah, I think this also exceeded my expectations.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I kind of leave you with. And also like, just again, in terms of if you don't want any spoilers, but you kind of want to know what you're getting into, again, think like pirates, like are a big theme of it. And like a YA pirate Princess Bride book is what you should go into expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, stop listening now. We'll just take the hit in retention. That's fine.
All right. The gloves are off. Yeah. Okay. So what were some of your favorite parts of the book?
So first of all, I loved that Hoyd was the narrator, and that I recognize that probably played into like a lot of the humor.
That was the whole problem, right? Like,
yeah.
And honestly, I like the Hoyd wit type of humor, which is present in a lot of Stormlight Archive. I really like that incarnation of his humor, but the crazy like unhinged Hoyd humor here was just it's a little...
Well, okay, so there's the difference between Hoyd as a narrator of the story and Hoyd
I guess that's true,
right? So because to me, like Hoyd is the narrator of the story, like when he would like break the fourth wall and tell you to shut up or whatever, like to me that like really fit with his Stormlight Archive persona.
For some reason it didn't for me. I don't know why.
It's just now you're the one being made fun of, or what,
Yeah, maybe I don't like that. The whole thing where he called everyone Doug and kind of went on for that for a few pages. Like, I didn't think that was that funny.
Yeah, I've heard people really didn't like the Doug thing. I thought it was like a kind of a unique way to say, oh, there's background characters that we're just not going to care about.
I mean, it's convenient, but I felt like it went on for too long where he was talking about like every society reaches a point where like Doug is it's like, okay, I don't see why that's funny. But
see, to me, that's more of like a Terry Pratchett type, like, I don't know, just kind of like, let's take this like social, like, I don't know, insight and like make it this kind of like light, frivolous thing. I haven't read too much of Pratchett, but that's kind of my take.
Yeah, I mean, it did have some kind of like almost bizarro type tone elements, or kind of like series of unfortunate events, or these really strangely toned books. I don't know. The tone was it was whimsical at times, but at other times it was kind of all over the place, where it tried to be poignant, and it was for like a second, and then there was a silly joke, and Mistborn Era 2 did the same exact thing. So I guess that's my deal a little bit more, is I would like more gradual tone transitions.
I could see that. So I think that for me, the very first part of the book was by far my favorite, which seems like funny to say, like before Tress even left the island. Like I loved I loved her and Charlie's like cute little romance in the beginning where they like said that they're like each other's gloves. Like I thought that was super cute. I really liked, like, even when Tress's dad was like going around convincing people to like help Tress like escape, and like he's playing darts, and like instead of aiming for the dartboard, they're like aiming for the knots on the wood that like symbolize the private areas of the king. Like that was all just like, I could totally see this like this like little town and community, and I really enjoyed that. And even like the like painting the king out to be like this just like hilariously evil dude who's like willing to sacrifice his son and for like to get like a better, you know, like better son-in-law, or like just all these things really worked for me.
It reminded me a little bit of Hearthstone and Kaladin and their little village there.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
But yeah,
Like
I did like that part. Yeah.
So I was kind of sad that we didn't get to go back there at all. You know what I mean? I guess we did kind of at the end, but
the very end. But yeah, I
So,
thought it was a strong start.
Yeah, strong start. And even like how Tress escapes had like the typical Sanderson switcheroo where, oh, you know, like she's not the person in the like in the thing, she's the inspector. Like that was a cool little twist. Like I don't know, that was all very clever. And so for me, like it started off very high, and then I'm like, okay, now we're on a ship, we're gonna like, you know, pirate about. So I enjoyed that part a lot.
And then when we go into the pirating about parts, I did think the book slowed down quite a bit through this middle section where they were just kind of like continually on the ship and just like advancing to the next level of understanding the magic and the next level of going into the different types of ocean. And it was fine, but I didn't feel the urgency in doing it. Like the whole time we were trying to save Charlie, but you know, who knows what's going on there? There was no like countdown.
The dragon.
Well, the dragon was cool.
The dragon was cool, yeah, but it's just like and again, like that almost has like a Hobbit feel to it though, where it's like they have like this destination and then they just spend a lot of time like walking around trying to get to that destination, you know what I mean? So it kind of has that. So
and there was some urgency added with the Captain Crow, right, being kind of evil, and the Tress was winning over the admiration in respect of the crew. Like all those things were kind of moving towards some kind of goal, but maybe
and then like the crew rescues her at the end. Like all of that, like ended up working out.
I mean, like it all kind of worked, but through this middle part, it just didn't. There wasn't like I never felt concerned for the ultimate.
There wasn't a plot device that was urging things along necessarily.
But at the same time, like, should there have been? It's a YA book, and you kind of figure that, like, with this type of tone, it is going to work out. When you're watching The Princess Bride, like, is he going to rescue the princess? Like, yes, obviously, right? So are we going to rescue the prince? Yes, obviously we will at the end. So it did fit the tone. I don't know if this is a complaint or just kind of like a remark on the way these types of stories work.
Yeah, no, I could see that. Fair point. I think, but for me, some of the highlights in the middle were a kind of having like Huck's deceit, you know, like that's his name, right? Not it's
the mouse version of Charlie.
Exactly. That was pretty cool. I also enjoyed like the Chondra that we're, you know, getting to meet and find
the
out.
doctor.
I also enjoyed Tress playing around with the magic system, and like I kind of wish that we had like gotten to see her control the spores a little bit more throughout it. Like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. it's a magic system that has a lot of potential. It's very unique. Once again, it's amazing how Sanderson continues to do this. And yeah, it is something that you almost like wish would be continually relevant. So maybe he'll bring it back in and something else in the future. I don't know.
Well, we know that the Aethers are important.
Yeah, true. But we don't really have a sense of how they work exactly. I mean, we've seen them in one other thing that I won't say. And it's fairly different than what we've seen here.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's see what else worked. I also like one of the most cinematic scenes for me was like Tress walking from like ship to ship, like not knowing when she's or if she like the the sand is going to start fluidizing again.
See, I wish I had seen the Mark Rober video before that. I would have understood that a little bit more.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's see. And then obviously the dragon was really cool. And like her little like realizing that, oh, I can just say that I brought the dragon this sacrifice. Like the dragon doesn't care who brought who. It's just who's
That was
like
cool.
that was super, super cool.
It was nice that really worked. The dragon itself, Zixis, whatever. I mean, that was like our first real extended look into a dragon here in the Cosmere, and we know that they exist, and it describes.
But did we ever know that they exist? Like
dragons?
Words of Brandon?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen one on screen one other time that I probably shouldn't say.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
You can tell me after.
But not like explicitly described in the same way where the dragon.
Oh, I got you.
Scales.
Yeah.
Okay, you got okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, dragons are, it's like Sanderson's favorite creature. He said he's always wanted to do stories with dragons, and so we finally see one, and it's cool. And it's I mean, I kind of like these types of dragons where they are these wise sentient beings, and but also are not super altruistic and are kind of out for themselves. And yeah.
I thought that really worked. And it felt a little shoehorned into it, but still like cool. They
definitely needed, like in this Princess Bride story, they needed like the landmarks along the way, like the objectives that they have to pass. And so that was what the story needed.
Yeah. One thing that I wish was a little bit more clear is the motivations behind the big bad sorceress.
Oh yeah.
That was just kind of like, I felt like that was
the Elantran.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that. Well, I guess I did. But
she was using the Andor, right?
Yeah, but now I kind of assume that like investiture power is just, I don't know, like, do you have to be native to?
I mean, she's definitely launching. We've actually seen her before in Secret History. Her name is mentioned there. She's one of the like Erie, whatever group that was doing something in Secret History. Anyway, definitely a very minor. Yeah.
We might need to do another video of every Cosmere connection in Tress or something like that, because I did not pick up on a lot of these things. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I had to, usually when there's a Cosmere connection, I will just search it and make sure like, okay, this is what I need to know.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, maybe we need to be that search for people. So yeah, I think all that worked really well. So I think, setting aside, we talked a lot about the humor, but I think that the book, taking that out, like just did really, really well with a lot of it. I liked the fact that Chuck ended up being Charlie. I thought that was like cool.
Yeah. Did you see that twist coming? Was that like
no, again, sometimes, like when I'm reading a Stormlight book, I'm like actively theorizing throughout it and like trying to figure it out. And like, I've been able to call some of the bigger twists, you know what I mean? But this book, I just like almost intentionally put myself on autopilot because A, I knew I wanted to read it relatively quickly, and B, I just figured that's how it was meant to be read, was just kind of like on autopilot.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't see it coming.
That's fair. Yeah, I was probably the same. I don't think I was really actively diving into like, oh, how is this going to work out? I was mainly just enjoying the story.
Yeah. So, but I thought it would have been crazy if, for example, if they like when she kind of went off with fake Charlie, I thought that could have been cool. Like in terms of like, oh, kind of like a twist on the fairy tale, like, oh, I did grow and he didn't, so now I saved him, but we're not compatible. Like, again, that's not Sanderson style, but I would have given a lot of props to him if he had done it that way.
That would have been a crazy subversion.
Yeah.
And definitely, I don't think it would have worked in this story, but
people would have been mad. Like people would have been like, what gives,
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of,
I think it would have made for a really interesting story, but I think it would have needed to have been set up a little bit differently, or not quite had.
Well, it kind of was though. It kind of was. That's the thing. It's like she was feeling like that was one of the big themes of the book, was her changing, right? Like, oh, I'm not this timid little girl anymore. Oh, I can actually ask for things. Oh, people are willing to do what I tell. You know what I mean? Like she's growing.
But then you don't. Yeah, but then you don't really have the happy ending that you're promised.
Well, that's fair. I'm just saying that like it was set up in terms of her personal growth to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in terms of like the whimsical fairy tale tone, but in terms of,
Yes, that's fair.
And whereas like you don't see that much, you don't see any growth for Charlie on screen. You just see him trying to sabotage like the journey and being scared of a cat,
Right. And you're just kind of told at the end, like, oh, Charlie has also changed and now they're compatible.
Right. Yeah, they've changed in different but compatible ways. So
which is good. I'm glad that Charlie has changed. Otherwise, he definitely would not match this new version of Tress.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about Hoyd kind of stepping in and saving the day because he had an excuse to? You know what I mean?
Like, I thought that was cool. Yeah, Hoyd actually throwing down a bit.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I guess one question that I have, and maybe Cosmere, people that know more can answer this, but I don't know where in the timeline this falls. I assume it's kind of like far in the future of the Cosmere because of the technology that
of the iPad
sorceress
and the spaceship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that makes me think we're way well into the future. Probably further than any other published book we've seen so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's crazy because I've got to say you're right. It's just crazy that like Hoyd could just be still up to just doing kind of random stuff at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hoyd is fun in that he's got these big goals that we kind of know about, but he also doesn't take them nearly as seriously as you feel like he should as the reader. But at a lot of levels, that's just kind of fun.
Yeah, but like you're wondering what he was trying to get from the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, like why was he cursed in the first place?
Well, yeah, because he was trying to get something from her or something. I don't know. Like,
yeah. Honestly, I do not remember the details of how that went down.
Yeah, I think it was just he went there to try and achieve something or whatever and didn't take it as seriously as he should have, and then she beat him. So,
all right, well, second round.
But it was it was a fun curse though, like of him being able to not say what's in his mind or whatever. Like, that's pretty cool. And like the classic, like, oh, let's think about ways that we could subvert that, like, so anything he does talk about means that it's not there. Yeah. So
yeah,
fun times.
Yeah, there were a lot of really nice things in this book.
Cannonballs being like different styles of like artillery and stuff like that. Yeah, was fun.
Classic Sanderson magic science lecture about how the cannonballs are gonna work with these different types of magic. That was cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Do we want to let's do a worst to the best? Do you?
Okay.
I have an example. I have one.
Okay, you start.
Okay, so the one thing that I really enjoyed, but there was like one aspect to it that made me not like it quite as much, was the world building, which I loved for the most part, but there was no map. And I really would have loved a map to be included. And I'm hoping that the box that they send out with the book will have a map in it, but I kind of don't think it will, because otherwise they would have just put the digital map in with the ebook and everything. Yeah, so I like maps. I would have liked to see
You
this,
always love maps.
the different rings of the different seas and colors and everything. It would have made for a really beautiful map, but maybe Dragonstone's a little too busy with the 100 other projects they're doing, and they weren't able to slot in a map for this book.
Yeah, but you're right. Like in terms of whenever you're navigating somewhere, it always helps to have a map.
Yeah. Especially for this one where it's basically a travel log, it would be nice to say, okay, they've got to go 1, 2, 3, and then they'll make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've already done like a few that probably could be worse than the best. I'm gonna say that my worst of the best is probably the pace of the book. Again, like we talked about, like I think it was really good in the fact that like the beginning was really good, and I thought that the end like obviously had the like a typical like standard type style of events, but so it was really, really good. And I thought that basically everything after the dragon worked really well, but there's just that like middle part where it was just a little bit slow, like what you pointed out, where it's just like could have probably cut out 50 pages of the book.
Yeah, they needed that middle part to introduce us to the magic more, to introduce us to
and really to the characters
more. Yeah, but maybe there could have been like one more thing to really kind of increase the urgency through that part.
So
yeah,
that's kind of a stretch for me, because real worst of the best would have probably been like the motivation behind the Wicked Witch and stuff, but like that's we've already talked about those things. So
okay, so there's our review of Tress of the Emerald Sea. It's kind of this is gonna be a fun year, because in 2 months we have another Sanderson book coming out every 3 months, or actually wait, yeah 2 months. It'll be beginning of April.
So we're gonna be back here again.
Yep. All right, well, thanks, Ben.
No problem.
See you later.
That's it.